So I think the majority of reviewers, if this film came out now, would be really, their jaws would drop at how wild this film kind of is, how different it is, especially from other movies at the time. But this is insanely different than movies today.
Anybody home?
Who are you?
What's up, YouTube? Jab by Movies here. My name is James.
My name's Blaze.
And never have I ever seen the 1990 horror cult classic, Jacob's Ladder.
Where are you taking me? Where am I?
Where do you want to go?
Home.
This is your home. You're dead.
I'm not dead.
What are you then?
I'm alive.
Mourning his dead child, a haunted Vietnam veteran attempts to uncover his past while suffering from a severe case of dissociation. To do so, he must decipher reality and life from his own dreams, delusions, and perceptions of death. So, James, this is a pretty interesting movie, especially for 1990. I know when this film originally came out, though, critically, it was pretty much lambasted. A lot of people called it a cheap trick. A lot of people just didn't think that it was as smart as the film it intends itself to be. People thought that it was just like a cheap magician's trick and that this was actually a really stupid movie as opposed to being a smart film. But I'd love to know what you thought about this film, especially this is 31 years later. Is this a smart film? Is it a not so smart film? I guess, how did you think? What did you think about the movie?
Well, I guess the main thing I want to talk about is it's a very different movie. It's definitely a horror film, but it's unlike any real horror film that's out there and stuff. And I definitely see why a remake was made just a couple of years ago, and it's a bummer that it ended up being super bad. I haven't seen that one, but I was curious to hear how that movie would do and stuff. Just because I know that this movie is a cult classic, but not that many people still talk about it. When I bring it up, it's a movie that I don't know anyone who's watched it other than you. Everyone just always says oh yeah, I know about that movie, I want to see it. Oh yeah, I know about that movie, I want to see it. And I just thought let's get around to seeing it. But it's unlike any movie I've seen, speaking that it's a Vietnam PTSD movie in ways, but also, as you find out as the movie progresses, of course, it goes a lot deeper into why they kind of having these crazy visions and stuff. But yeah, it's horrifying. There's no jump scares. It's just haunting imagery, and it's the closest to a nightmare you can really get to in a movie. And I really jumped on board once you kind of start realizing wait, what is a dream and what isn't a dream? Right when he wakes up with his ex-wife and stuff, or his wife, and his son is still alive, that's when I was just oh my god, what is this movie getting into? Was all that stuff fake and stuff? And it's just you're really going into this crazy descent into madness of him and stuff. And my jaw pretty much dropped by the time it ended and stuff, just because I was just what? Wow, and stuff. And yeah, it's really if you haven't seen it, definitely recommend checking out, because I there's a lot of twists and turns and stuff, and it kind of, there's nothing's really explained, but just you're finally given an answer at the end, and it just ends. You're just oh my god. But yeah, I absolutely love this movie.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those things where I definitely agree with you. I don't feel like enough people talk about this movie, whether it's that they feel it's a cheap trick. I think we're far beyond that at this point. I don't think that many reviewers in this day and age are as kind of trying to be as prolific as back in the day. Now people are just this movie kicked ass. So I think the majority of reviewers, if this film came out now, would be really, their jaws would drop at how wild this film kind of is, how different it is, especially from other movies at the time. But this is insanely different than movies today. I think that this movie does take some crazy leaps, but at the same time, you would never see movies today kind of come to the same conclusions that this film did, because I thought this film was absolutely incredible. Like you said, it has this awesome nightmare imagery. I'd seen this film before, and I was actually really excited for this one because I'm oh, this is a good one that I honestly don't remember ever talking about. I think I watched this movie, really enjoyed it. I maybe talked about this film with one other person in my whole life, and that was about it. It's very, very few movies. I feel like most movies I talk to at least like a couple of people. Oh, you saw that. We talk about it, exchange words. If a movie's worthy of it, this definitely is a film that's worthy of conversation.
Yeah, what drew me into it, I think, was my high school film teacher. That is like, you know, kind of the reason and inspiration to what made me want to watch so many movies and like, you know, like try to get a job in like cinema and stuff, just because like I remember he always expressed that this is one of the scariest films he's ever seen, but it was just a movie that I didn't hear anyone kind of describe it that way and stuff. But I've just but as I like started to do research on it, it's like a movie that seems to have stuck with so many people and has inspired so many things as well too. Like Silent Hill apparently is heavily inspired off of Jacob's Ladder and stuff. And I can't comment because I haven't played those games. I saw the first movie and stuff, and I honestly can't recall that movie too well. Like, I know it does have a pretty big cult audience as well too, but I saw it when I was younger and I was a little lost as a kid watching it. But yeah, seeing this, like Tim Robbins is a fantastic actor within this movie too. A lot of familiar faces too with Pruitt Taylor Vince, as well as Ving Rhames too. I was and who can forget also Macaulay Culkin. That really caught me off guard seeing him in this movie. But yeah, just like you kind of have to get into spoilers to talk about this movie, and you know, this movie is 31 years old. We just said it, so like, you know, either you've seen it or you haven't seen it. But if you haven't, like, definitely go check it out and stuff. But just like, it's always been something like I always like was curious to see in a movie and stuff. The idea of like, you know, drugs being experimented to where it like can create like these horror visions and stuff. And like, I know Climax is a newer movie that kind of did that and stuff. I wonder if like Jacob's Ladder played a part in inspiring Climax. I still have yet to like really watch Climax. I remember seeing it in theaters, but I saw it at like 11:30 at night and I passed out because it was the day after work or something. But yeah, just the idea of like, you know, experimental drug doses and what they can do and stuff and what they're capable of, like, is horrifying to see. And just like the idea of like, oh, like, you know, these veterans like years later are experiencing symptoms, and then altogether at the end you just find out like, oh no, like none of this is happening and stuff. It's just like wild, and just like what a crazy roller coaster this movie was.
Yeah, I think I really enjoyed the ending of this film, like this second go around, because I kind of know, so I'm looking for all the nuances there. But at the same time, like it's cool because it's like that kind of, you know how they always talk about like a deer being clutched in like a lion's jaws, and like kind of like its body just goes limp, and you have to be wondering like, is that deer just is the reason that it just goes limp and kind of accepts its fate is because it's on the most insane trip ever. Like all the dimethyltryptamine is released from its brain, and then it just goes on this kind of interplanetary trip and finds peace in a way. It's kind of like how I felt about Jacob's Ladder. But at the same time, I felt like Jacob's Ladder is the nightmare version of that, like the bad trip version, because the drug that was released on their platoon was this kind of like rage-inducing, like almost nightmare drug. This guy who eventually makes the revelation and tells Jacob, who's also part of the trip, but telling him what happened. I mean, essentially, this could still... Since that was a part of the trip, essentially, Jacob could have just died and he was on that trip that I was talking about that the deer was on. So we'll never know, but I'll just go that maybe it's the fact that this guy is telling Jacob about the trip, that maybe that's why Jacob died. I don't know. I think I just unlocked a new key to this film. I'm not really sure.
This is Inception before Inception came out and stuff. Yeah.
Was he actually, the guy wasn't actually there because it was part of the trip, right?
Right.
Or was
he
getting some type of I don't know, like, yeah, was he getting like an inkling of what actually did happen? Like, was this drug that was dropped on the platoon that kind of drive them all mad and insane and cause them to fight amongst each other and you know, tear each other to pieces, which is essentially what this guy tells Jacob. Is they tried this drug on primates and what they did was abhorrent. They tore each other to pieces, and it was the worst thing that's ever happened, essentially, is what this guy says. Yeah. So that's kind of the vibe that you catch what happened to Jacob. But then the end of the film is you find out that he is dying on a table, and the medics kind of like finally he lets go, and the medics are like, wow, that was crazy. What even was that guy's name? Like, he was there for so long, like just bleeding out, essentially.
Right, yeah, like I almost like needed like the clarification and stuff. Like this is one of the few movies where like I really had to go to like Wikipedia and just like, wait, did I get everything correct and stuff? Like, yeah, just to double check and stuff and make sure like everything was like proper with everything that I envisioned and stuff, because it really comes out of nowhere and stuff. And like I really didn't want it to end, like even though this movie is about 2 hours or so, like it didn't feel like it, just because every scene kind of has a pretty important role and stuff. Like every scene with his girlfriend though, I'd say also that bathtub scene, like I don't know what about it, but just something about it was one of the most intense like kind of sequences I've ever seen, where just like, you know, he's burning to death but also freezing at the same time and stuff like that. Just like kind of made me feel sick and gross, because that's one of my biggest things that I hate more than anything is the chills and like flu and fever symptoms, where you don't know if you're hot and cold at the same time, where you're like sweating but like you feel freezing. Like it's the worst feeling ever. So like that was a really like grotesque nightmare sequence that I had to experience, and some of these images I'm not going to be able to like kind of cut out of my head, like the spinning faces, as well as a weird tentacle from that homeless person early on in the movie. Like when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, what the hell? Like, yeah.
Yeah, and what's really cool about that is actually the majority of the special effects in this movie were done in camera or on camera. Like especially that kind of spinning head scene was just a guy going like this, but with the shutter speed taken to like 5 or something, or the frame rate taken to 5. So that's what makes it so when you're moving your head, it can't really pick it up. It's like a blur. But all that stuff was really cool. I thought this film was really imaginative in the story, but also all the effects that they showcased within this piece.
Yeah, they really hold up too. Like nothing feels outdated whatsoever, and it's all used very sparingly too. Like a lot of movies, like I assume that might have been the problem with the remake. They probably might have focused too much on some of those elements. I haven't seen the trailer, I haven't seen the movie, so I can't comment on it. But I can imagine like this movie would be cool to see remade, just because not that many people know of it. That's the only reason why I would kind of ever support a remake for a movie like this. But it holds up so well to where it is kind of unnecessary. But I can see like a modern movie that like is a little under budget, I assume that was the case, where they focus all on CGI and showing like creepy sequences that might hold up now but won't hold up a few years later. And so that seems to be the problem a lot with like those kind of remakes and stuff. So yeah, like the fact that it was using sparingly was like fantastic as well too. And like, you know, making sure that it's like focused on like, you know, military base, and like that's why the reason why the way they are. But like, you know, it's not like central, like that's not the main plot point of them being in Vietnam, but like ultimately kind of is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I have a fun story actually about my time. I worked at Sony, and Jacob's Ladder I think is a Columbia picture. I could be wrong, but anyways, the rights were at Sony essentially. I don't know why anyone would have wanted to remake this movie, but the remake did come out of Sony Pictures. And there was in the gym, there was a machine called Jacob's Ladder. There's like an actual gym machine called Jacob's Ladder that's like a climbing machine. Uh-huh. So I have the idea that an exec possibly walked by that machine and was like, dude, we got to remake Jacob's Ladder.
That's funny to think about that. Oh my God. But it was like, that was the like name of the company or something, or did someone as a joke just write that on like one of those weird ladder machines?
No, the actual machine is called Jacob's Ladder. You can Google it. There's a workout machine called Jacob's Ladder. It's an expensive piece of machinery because it's like I've heard that workout is like a full body workout and it will just totally kick your ass. So being that an expensive gym obviously pays for the best equipment, that was there. But it was like right in the window. Like every time I would walk by the gym, I would see it, Jacob's Ladder. I'm like, wait, is that named after the movie or something? Like what's going on? And I Googled it and I was like, oh, it's just like happens to be named that. Because Jacob's Ladder is like, it has to do something with the Bible. Yeah. So yeah, it is like a thing before this movie, but I have a feeling that the exec walked by that. I was like, yeah, let's just remake that. Like, you know, I'm
not surprised because I know Sony has always just been like, what properties do we have? All right, franchise this, or like make money off of this and stuff. Yeah, no, never go original, just all like remake or like create like multiple things off of this one project. Yeah, and
there is a Ghostbusters movie currently sitting on the shelf, haunting the halls of Sony's, which is waiting to get out. So hopefully we can't wait this year.
They're waiting for everything to be 100% like, all right, here's our money maker and stuff. Yeah, really banking on that. Yeah.
Is there a Jumanji movie sitting on there? I'm just wondering, like, what other things they have probably sitting on the shelf.
I wouldn't be surprised if they're working on that third one already. They're still trying to get that Spider-Man franchise or cinematic universe going with Morbius and Venom too. So Sony's a mess. Like, I'm glad that PS5 is working out for them, but the movie thing is a whole other thing. But now I almost want to check out this remake, though. Maybe we'll check it out for when we bring back Direct to Dumpster, because nobody talked about that remake.
Yeah, definitely. That's probably a good iteration.
Yeah. But yeah, if you haven't seen Jacob's Ladder, a great way to help support the show is by watching it through our Amazon affiliate link in our description box below. Be sure to do that and come back here, leave a comment, and let us know what you thought about the movie.
And if you haven't already, guys, go ahead and hit that like button. Also, hit the subscribe button and click that notification bell to get all of our latest updates.
And if you can't get enough of us here on YouTube, we are also on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Be sure to catch all of our thoughts on there. Anyways, guys, that's going to conclude this week's episode. Tune in next week for a brand new video.